we're going to start chapter 15 with a fairly simple document where I'm going to demonstrate to you both the float property, the CSS float property, and the position properties that are discussed in Robbins chapter 15. So first I'd like you to have a look at our HTML so that you can assure yourself that it's pretty simple HTML. It's got one heading at the top, an H1, and then it's got these 5 paragraphs that are set up to be almost identical, and each paragraph contains one word, the name of an animal, and a little iconic image that shows a picture of that animal. So the one that is different from the others is the second paragraph because it has the image first and the word after the image. The others have the word first and the image after the word. Then there's a final paragraph on the page that is simply text, and it will not be treated like the others in the CSS. Now look at the CSS to begin with so that you can see it's relatively simple. Now I hope you're getting used to this by now, this CSS style. So the body has just a background, a text color, a font family, a font size, and it has a margin all the way around the entire page. The H1 has padding, background color, text color, and the text is aligned to the center. All the paragraphs, except for one, have a padding of 20 pixels on all 4 sides, a background color, and they are also aligned to the center. And then I have one special class called No Styles, and that is for the final paragraph that doesn't have an animal in it, and link colors that are as simple as possible. So what does our page look like? This is what our page looks like right now. You'll remember that block elements go 100% of the width, so everything goes side to side. The H1 with this blue background all the way from the left to the right. We've got a margin around the whole body, so you can see that there is some space on the left and right sides, on the top and the bottom. We've got these 5 paragraphs that have animals in them, and then a 6th paragraph that simply has text, and we won't be doing special things with that. So the first thing we'll do to work with floats is we will put a width on these 5 paragraphs that have the animals inside them. And if they're 100% wide, there's nothing to float because they extend from side to side, right? For something to float, it has to be less wide than 100%. So all of those animals are wrapped inside a P tag. They could be, instead of a P, we could have wrapped them in a div. We could have wrapped them in a figure element. There's various choices, but I just chose P. So let's put that at the top, and width, I think 250 will be good. So 250 pixels. I will save, I will reload, and you see what that did. All right, so now instead of being 100% wide, each of the P's is 250 pixels wide. The last P is different because, as you remember, we put a different style on that. We put a class on it to make it look different from the others because it doesn't have an animal in it. The next thing we want to do is simply float the P's. So we will float them all to the left. And oops, let's have a space there. Save and reload. And instantly you see what float has done. It has taken them up out of the normal flow, and it has put them side to side, putting each one left by left by left. And if the page is not wide enough to accommodate all of them, the last one, the zebra, falls down below the others, but it still goes toward the left. If there were a 6th animal here, it would be on the right side of the zebra, but it would push to the left, touching the zebra. Now, these paragraphs don't have any margins on the left and right, so let's add a margin to see how those look. Let's see, margin right, and let's say 20 pixels perhaps. Save and reload. And now you can see the paragraphs separately, the block elements, and you'll see how float works. If I change the width of my browser, if I make it narrower, they fall down. All right, so eventually, if I get really narrow, they are going to fall down into their original stack. All right, as I widen the page up, they will go back and back and back. So a float left can give you a lot of flexibility. If you wanted to create a site that was sort of laid out with little boxes like Pinterest, you would probably use floats. There are two kinds of floats. You've seen float left, that's what this is, and there's also float right. So what would float right look like? We would simply change left to right and save and reload, and everything goes to the right. Now you might notice that the order has changed. I had put these animals in alphabetical order, so it was elephant, giraffe, lion, rhino, but when you float things to the right, the first one goes all the way to the right. So elephant used to be on the left, the leftmost one, now it's the rightmost one, and it is followed by giraffe, which is followed by lion, and so on. And the one that falls down, zebra, of course, that goes to the right. The same flexibility when we change the browser width happens the same way, but now everybody goes to the right, regardless of the width of the browser. All right. Now, we also see a little bit of an alignment error over here on the right-hand side. These elements are no longer aligned with the rightmost side of the page. And that is because, remember, we put the margin on the right side. So what you're seeing here, beside the elephant and beside the zebra, is you are seeing the same amount of margin that you see in between each of the block elements. So in order to make a flush right work correctly, you want things to really align on the right side. And we could change that simply by making our margin right a margin left, so that the space will be on the left side instead of on the right side. So save and reload. And now look on the right side and you'll see that that margin error is gone. We have perfect alignment on the right-hand side. So let's step away from floats and move on to position. Okay, I'm going to use the same HTML page, the same CSS, but I'm going to delete what we've done with the floats. So take that away and save and reload our page. And you'll see we're back to almost the beginning. I still kept the short width on the 5 paragraphs with the animals, but now all the float material and the margins that we used with floats, I've taken those away. And now we're going to look at position using the same page. So everything's happening in our Ps. So first thing that you do with position is you choose a value for the position property. And we're going to start with relative. And remember, this will apply to all 5 of the Ps that have the animals in them. And then you're going to choose top or bottom, and you're going to choose left or right. And for a lot of positioning, we just use top and left. It's you're positioning the element by the top left-hand corner of the element. And relative to the container, or the containing element, the top measurement will position the top of the positioned element, and the left element will position the left edge. So let's do a -1 so that everything will move up on the page from where it is, pixel. And left, we will push it farther toward the right, so we're going to increase the position of the left side, moving the left side farther toward the right. And that'll be 200 pixels. All right, and we'll save and remember what it looks like. And now I'm going to reload, and what's happened? Everything has gone up by 200 pixels. That is top minus 200. And everything has moved from the left 200 pixels. So it's moved from the left toward the right, and it's moved toward the top. And all 5 animals have moved the same way, and also our bottom paragraph has moved because we didn't override that. So all the P's on the page have now been moved by that single set of the 3 lines that I just put into my style sheet. I'm now going to change the position, these 3 lines that we added, and I'm going to take it out of the rule for all of the P's. I'm going to create a new class so I can apply it to just one P. So I will first make my class. I will name it move. So it's a class dot move. Okay. And I will cut these 3 lines that positioned everything, and I will paste them here. So now they're only going to apply to anything with the class of move, and currently I don't have anything with that class. I'm going to save, I'm going to reload, show you everything's back to normal, so the page is as it was, and now I'm going to add that class to the giraffe P. All right, so a class named move. So the rule that I just wrote for this class will apply only to this one P, the one paragraph. Save and reload. And what I wanted to show you is that it moved giraffe only, probably expected that, but it left a gap where giraffe used to be. This is because of position relative. That is a characteristic of position relative. And also, it didn't move anything else. It moved the giraffe only 200 pixels up. The top went up from where it would have been, again, because it's relative, and it moved 200 pixels to the left from where it would have been. So think of relative being relative to where the thing was before, and you have good control, but you're definitely going to leave this gap. And what we're going to see in a moment is position absolute behaves very differently. One last thing before we leave position relative, and that is, just to make the next step clear, I want to show you what the giraffe looks like if we keep position relative, but we change top to 100 pixels, so this is a positive number instead of a negative number, and the left to 300 pixels. So I will save that, and then over here, this is what it was before with minus 200 top and 200 left. So now you're going to see what it is with the new numbers when I reload. So we have now changed the top number to 100 pixels and the second number left to 300 pixels, and the giraffe is in a new position relative to where it would have been in the normal flow. Now I want you to compare this to the next thing, which is, instead of relative, I'm going to say the position is absolute. This is a very different type of position from relative. So I'll save and I will reload. You're going to see the giraffe in another place because the giraffe is the only element that has this class. All right, now for one thing, the giraffe is in a new position, completely different, and the position is now determined by the container of the giraffe paragraph. If you remember from the HTML, the container of the giraffe paragraph is the body. So the body is the entire contents of the browser window, what we call the viewport. So when you're looking at that page, the giraffe is 100 pixels down from the top. The top of the giraffe is the top of the viewport plus 100 pixels. The left side of the giraffe is the left side of the viewport plus 300 pixels. Previously, the position of the giraffe, when we used position relative, it was determined by where the giraffe would normally be. Now, with position absolute, the position is determined by the container that the giraffe paragraph is in. And you'll also notice that there is no more gap. When you've got position relative, there's a hole left by the thing you've moved. When you have position absolute, there is no hole. You can't tell where it used to be. So there's one last position that we need to go over. We've seen relative, we've seen absolute, which is this one, and now we're going to see fixed. So I will change absolute to fixed. I will not change the top position or the left position. So when I first reload the page, this is going to look the same. So I save and I will reload, and there appears to be no change at all. The giraffe is in the same position it was before because it's got the same top number and the same left number. But when I scroll this page, now you see what it means to be fixed. So the giraffe right now has a fixed position, and that means no matter how long this page is, no matter how far it would scroll, the giraffe will always be at that position 100 pixels down from the top and 300 pixels over from the left. 300 pixels moved from the left. So that's position fixed. So in this video, we've covered two kinds of floats. We covered float left and float right, and we covered three kinds of position. We've covered relative, absolute, and fixed.